For well-known and now understandable reasons, our home planet Earth was destroyed much earlier than we expected. However, by that time many were imbued with indifference to her, having perfectly mastered other planets. Still, we are extremely sorry. We love to relax there, visit its museums and the ruins of ancient cities. It is not clear how successfully our women will now carry a pregnancy, since a planet with identical gravity and radiation background hasn't yet been found. Those who watched the death of Earth's life remembered the words of ancient book. And behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black like a sackcloth of hair, and the whole moon became like blood, and the stars of the sky fell to the earth like a fig tree shading its late figs when shaken by a strong wind. The sky was split and rolled up like a scroll, and every mountain and island were dislodged and moved out of their places. The once up-to-date text now appears to be a terrible anachronism, while the Third Testament also seems to be outdated. No matter how hard linguists, philosophers and writers, politicians and economists tried, after so many centuries having developed one common language, religion, and a common political and economic structure, the rejection of states didn't happen. The mechanism that had been launched was interrupted by the distribution of habitable planets. There is no guarantee that tomorrow someone with worse gravity, radiation and resources will not declare their rights. The world is still fragile. We invariably repeat the path of our ancestors, who fought on the tiny earth for territories, resources, money and ideas. Like them, we have no other choice. After millions of years, humanity hasn't been able to answer the only questions that matter. Is there God? If so, what is it? Atheists are still ridiculous because they only explain the cause and mechanism of the phenomenon, but cannot answer why it happened and what is its meaning. They see meaning in the very feeling of their meaningless lives with meaning. This pitiful justification works only in oblivion in labor, but not in moments of silence and anguish. Fortunately, humanity has abandoned the ideas of heaven and hell. After all, both of these imaginary places, in fact, are heavy as punishment. In the first, there is no suffering, and therefore there is no goal to overcome it, and there is no point in such an existence. In the second, there is the same endless suffering without the possibility of overcoming it, which means that it also makes no sense. It turns out that meaning is born only when there is a potential to surmount the suffering. The modern religious idea is such that everyone will get reward according to his faith. Whoever believes in life after death will proceed with God further according to the plan. But whoever believes in his complete annihilation, so be it, which however does not exclude the possibility of righteous life to a certain limit. As it became clear, both the brain of a particular person and the public consciousness work in accordance with the principle of the functioning of neurons, a common final path, or Sherrington's funnel. That is, to put it simply, the number of problems in the world is a constant. One disease replaces another. The lack of job is combined with the release of workers due to the steady robotization of labor. Further space exploration brings unpredictable consequences. Setting priorities, the individual's brain cuts off unnecessary signals, and therefore the mind is invariably protected from rubbish knowledge and psycho-emotional stressful influences. On the other hand, emptiness, the absence of signals for the brain, has the same effect on it. That is, it is also a kind of signal and encourages for actions. The steady study of matter in breadth and depth still does not affect the amount of our happiness. Before us is a model of the planetary rover of the ancient state Russia. At one time, its people were the first to leave the Earth on their ships. When the planets were divided, our state managed to get a separate house, taking into account its military strength and previous merits, while most other states continued to crowd together, few per planet. However, it seems that we continue to move steadily into the post-state era. Is it worth worrying about one's national identity? Those who have long lost it in the constant mixing of blood call us up to the liquidation of states. They say that we will be able to continue to study our peoples. We will be able to visit their museums and portals. We will be able to remain committed to cultures, but there is a lot to be said for the fact that there lies a deceit. The planet of the state Russia, with the same name, at the time of its discovery, turned out to be inhabited by living beings of an average degree of intelligence. Many of them are quite cute, although there are many dangerous parasitic forms. For example, in the wild sanctuary, there are six-legged rapids, similar to terrestrial felines, flat-winged moths, analogues of terrestrial corvids, and fin chimeras, somewhat reminiscent of dolphins. After several years of filtration, it was possible to exterminate dangerous microorganisms, although the problem of small flying segmenta wind is still relevant. In general, Russia was lucky in comparison with other states, whose planets turned out to be inhabited by more aggressive creatures with ugly forms and greater intelligence, which took many years to exterminate or delimit them. It is good that by now no planets have been found with highly intelligent life, the degree of development of which is similar or, God forbid, exceeds ours, which everyone is now very afraid of, but it seems to be a matter of time. All the more strange and wild are the ideas of our distant ancestors that apart from the Earth, there are no other planets in the universe with certain forms of life. What were they thinking when they looked at the stars, which are more numerous in the sky than grains of sand of the now decayed planet? How could they be so deluded? After all, it was enough to think a little and understand that the process of evolution is a typical process, which was tested on millions of inhabited planets. The Earth was just one of the shelters of nature, whose goal is to save itself by transferring to other planets, primarily by achieving intelligent life forms. It is clear that on the other planets the course of evolution was interrupted by the extermination of living forms, in particular through the absorption by their native stars, while on other planets it reached its goal. But where then is the intelligence that placed us on Earth? On the other hand, are other forms of transfer of life between planets possible without the participation of intelligent forms? The mineral composition of the planet Russia is diverse. There were found most of the elements of the Mendeleev's periodic table. Just as the territory of ancient Russia was once famous for its abundance of resources, so today Russia has a lot of hydrocarbons, metals, and water that cannot but cause offense in a number of neighbors. Fortunately, other strong states got no less rich planets, but they also leer at Russia, because there is excellent gravity, low radiation background, comfortable temperature range, and interesting wildlife. Plants and animals taken out from the now dead Earth got accustomed surprisingly quickly. All this does not allow Russia to relax in protecting its interests. And against this background, the calls of supporters of the UWS, Universe Without States movement, seem even craftier. Our anti-gravitator is flying over the place not far from the capital of the planet Russia. Behind the mountains lies beautiful Moscow. We cannot proceed to this non-flying zone. Knowledge of the essence of the phenomenon of gravity allows people today to abandon nuclear engines, move over unusually long distances at high speed, and discover new planets. Domestic antigravitators AG3 and AG4 showed high reliability. Currently, these devices are carrying out a unique experiment to simulate the conditional immortality of our pilots, sent to the International Experimental Corridor, where they fly at a speed close to the speed of light in order to slow down their time as much as possible in accordance with the theory of relativity. If the experiment is successful, then this will be the second way to extend the life of people, along with the tactics of continuous replacement of diseased organs. Besides, how smart were those of our ancestors who retained at least a small part of their genetic material. Now we can reproduce them into the life again. Truly, as they wrote in ancient books, your dead will live, their corpses will rise. You who lie in the dust, awake and shout for joy. Russia today is among the planet's leaders in space tourism. People come here for recreation and cultural exchange. It was possible to create the portal of culture, where the richest collection of human knowledge is collected in a virtual form with convenient and understandable navigation. At one time, the creation of electronic knowledge database gave rise to the illusion that every individual could access the entire volume of knowledge of humanity. But very soon, it became clear to everyone that a person was lost in the flood of this knowledge and could not prioritize. Moreover, people quickly realized that replacing the text with audiovisual or mentally broadcast information does not bring great knowledge to children for the most part. And those nations that have preserved the text are winning in the knowledge of the world. Could our distant ancestors imagine that all their works in the field of art and science, written on physical media, will live for centuries and influence generations of people so distant to them? Our little acquaintance with the planet Russia is over. We will try to continue to please you with information about different corners of our universe.